Hello and welcome back to Broyhill on Aviation Leadership. This week is episode 5 in the trait series, and we're going to look at the subject of leadership credibility. Now before I go on, I've gotten lots of comments on production values for these videos and how they could be better, specifically a better camera perhaps, and something to keep the little gleam off my forecranium. Just want you to know I'm thinking about that. I think I have some equipment that's on the way that's going to fix some of that, but your comments are appreciated, and I'll try to make things better as we go forward. So now, let's talk about credibility. The dictionary definition of credibility is pretty succinct. In the first instance, it's the quality or power of inspiring belief. The second, it's the capacity for belief. But as usual, the dictionary definition isn't going to give us quite the context we require. Now, Sandy Algier, in her book, The Personal Credibility Factor, builds upon that definition. She says when others believe, trust, and have confidence in you, you naturally receive their respect. You are someone with personal credibility. And then she expands upon that in a sense and says that credibility is a function of our behaviors and the observations of those around us. And it's either enhanced or damaged by the ongoing decisions we make and the behaviors we demonstrate. Now, of course, Stephen R. Covey defines things more precisely. He says that credibility is a function of 4 pillars or cores. Integrity. Are we congruent as leaders? Do we act in accordance with our values and our beliefs? What is our intent? What is our agenda? What are we trying to achieve for the organization? What are our capabilities? Are we relevant? Do we have the necessary skills to do our job? And finally, what are the results? What kind of track record do we have? These, he thinks, are what build the notion of credibility in the minds of those in organizations. From a statistics perspective, the ratings of credibility were pretty high. The overall mean was 6.13, the leaders were 6.15, the followers 6.11, all out of 7. So pretty strong belief that credibility is an important factor. Obviously, Levine's value of F was not significant, so the leaders and the followers are aligned here. But interestingly, leaders in a ranking perspective ranked it as the number 5 attribute, where followers ranked it number 6 after advocacy, which we'll talk about in our next session. So to provide an anecdote for the attribute of credibility, I had to go back to my Air Force days. I was in the Air Force about 20 years and 6 months, all told. During that time frame, I probably saw 25 or 30 different squadron commanders, worked for about 20 of them, which doesn't seem so weird when you think that, you're for a 20-year career, your normal assignment length is about 2.5 to 3 years, and during that time frame, you'll see in the same unit 2 to 3 different commanders, often 3, because a squadron commander tour typically lasts for a year. So the bottom line is you get to look at a lot of different leadership styles and a lot of different squadron commanders in that time frame, all geared for the act of leading people into battle, going to war, that sort of thing, paying the ultimate price if required. A pretty focused area of leadership. But you saw all sides of the leadership coin. But when it came to leadership credibility, I saw exactly 2 who I would choose to model myself after. The first one was a man by the name of Alvia Moore, A-L-V-I-A. I still remember how to spell his name, and he absolutely hated it. He went by Mud. That was his handle. He got that handle during the Vietnam War when the A-37 he was flying got shot down, and he had to wade through the mud to get to the rescue chopper. Now, Mud was one of the instrumental figures in the development of tactics for the A-10. And I got to know him when I was at RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge flying the A-10 during the Cold War in the late 80s. Mud was irascible. He was just a kind of temperamental kind of guy. And you often say something like, do this or I'll kill you. And not a leadership technique you could use today, I don't think. But he had a heart of gold. And the most important thing from a credibility perspective was when we would get in the jet and we would go fly, he would regularly just kick our butts on the gunnery range, whether he was leading the flight or whether he was a wingman. He would take the quarters for best bombs and best strafe and all that thing. Now keep in mind that this was before the A-10 had a computed weapons delivery system, so we were dropping bombs and shooting the gun like they did in World War II with pretty much an iron sight in the jet. But Mud would regularly just kick everybody's butt. And I always respected the fact that he took the time to stay good in the airplane. He knew he was going to have to lead us in the battle if the balloon went up, and we had confidence in his ability not only to do that, but his ability to employ the airplane. And that took a lot of effort with a squadron commander's level of responsibility to stay proficient in the airplane, but he did it, and he did a great job of it. The second person I saw who was along that same line was a gentleman by the name of Rue Kesterson. Rue's his handle. Rob was what he went by for his normal name, but Rue is what we called him, and I don't know where the name Rue came from. Rue was a demo pilot when he was stationed at Shaw in the F-16, and he knew that airplane backwards, forwards, and sideways. He could do some incredible things with that airplane. You weren't going to beat him in a dogfight. You weren't going to beat him on the gunnery range. He was going to take your money in either position as a squadron commander. Now, what makes both of these men, I think, very unique is they both took the time, as I mentioned, to stay good in the airplane. So why is that a big deal? Why is that a big deal? I think it's a big deal because it's not just about the skill level they demonstrate in the moment, although that's important. It's important to follow somebody that's good at what they do. But it says a lot about their character. It says a lot about their priorities. It says a lot about where they put their focus. Being credible, technically credible, was important to them. And they devoted the time, the effort to do that. And I think that just says a lot about who a leader is, if they take the time to be good. Now, don't get this wrong, there's some people I know, particularly in our industry, that like to make a show of how good they are and like to, create an environment where they look like they know more than anybody else, or they're the best in the airplane, or the smartest, or what have you. Neither Mudd nor Rue did that. They just flew the heck out of the jet. That's all they did. They didn't make a big deal of it. They just flew the heck out of the jet. They were quietly credible, but the example they set really resounded. And as leaders, I think that's something we need to think about, whether we're flying airplanes, whether we're turning wrenches, whether we're scheduling airplanes, no matter what we do, we need to be technically credible at what we do so we can inspire the respect of those who follow us. Thank you for tuning in to episode 5 of the Leadership Traits series. Next week in episode 6, we'll talk about the trait of advocacy. You can hit the subscribe button down here at the bottom of the screen and never miss an episode. And also, of course, all of the traits combined with some very rich stories from men and women who are leaders in our industry can be found in this book that you see here, Business Aviation Leadership from the Traits to the Trenches. It can be purchased through online retailers or through my website. You'll get signed copies through my website, of course. But all the proceeds go to the Leadership Conference Scholarship Fund, so they're all for the good of the industry. And you'll be doing the industry some good and maybe even learning something along the way. So, until next week, take care, stay healthy, and tailwinds.